Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, Excellencies, dignitaries present here, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and Happy New Year. A very warm welcome to all of you. And we at the Observer Research Foundation are particularly happy to be beginning the new year with this offering today by Dr. Jaishankar. This is, as you all know, and many of us would have attended the first launch we did in September 2020. This is the second book. And the first book, The India Way, had offered a kind of a concise prognosis of the country, that is India, that is Bharat, its strategic aims, its choices, its approaches in a multipolar world order, and the book busted all the charts. It's still flying off the shelves. This one, I can assure you, promises do much better. And that is because, why Bharat matters is perhaps an even better timed work narrating the journey of the country's emergence on the international stage as a confident nation, forging its own path and fully determined to shape the choices that it makes. And it comes from a person who actually has been responsible, has had the shaping, guiding hand, and the voice articulating it so many times on the national and the international stage about this global engagement. First, I would say for the past decade, first as Foreign Secretary and then as the External Affairs Minister. But more importantly, this book comes in the backdrop of three significant developments we are seeing all around us. One, we find ourselves not only in an increasingly turbulent world, but a more confused and unpredictable world at that. A world where in the midst of disruptive geopolitical realignments, our common future is in real danger of losing its moral compass. A situation in which new actors, including many marginalized voices from the global south, have begun questioning the formats, interrogating the terms of engagement that may have held sway in the past, but do not seem to be working very well right now. Secondly, 2024, this particular year, is going to be a year of political churn across, which is going to involve 50% of the world's population. 64 countries are going through an electoral process, and this does not include the EU. Now, these elections are taking place in a geopolitically fragmented, disjointed world. And yet, at the same time, this is one world in which many ordinary people, common people, groups are knit together by technology and connected like no other time in history. So for good or for bad, all kinds of transnational actors join in what were essentially in the past domestic exercises. So 2024 can expectedly be the year when not just the electoral outcomes, but the very course of these elections can influence the course of many of the conflicts and alignments that we see around us in the world today. And given where Bharat is positioned upon the global stage, we can be sure Indian elections are going to be closely watched by everybody. So the choices made by this electorate, made by 1.4 billion people, how they assess their future will matter not just within our shores, but to many around the world. Third and last, we are entering the critical years forward, achieving what the Prime Minister has called the Amrit Kal, which is primarily Viksit Bharat, a nation fully developed. The goal sets us on the path of not just economic growth, but also holistic transformation of lives, livelihoods. And here, our foreign policy, our international partnerships for the next few years will be of immense consequence to this process. So it is against this backdrop that the themes that Dr. Jaishankar engages with in this book provide the grounding for the ideas and the ideals that will shape India's choices. Ultimately, Bharat is a civilizational power, has been a civilizational power. It has a rich and powerful heritage that will remain its compass into the future. No doubt how Bharat engages with the powers and forces in its neighborhood, and not just its neighborhood, but far beyond, and secures its global interests, how it displays its economic heft, economic statecraft going into the future. This will in many ways mirror and be mirrored in the internal debates regarding the present times, the past times, and the times future that are contained in the time past. So therefore, the book places key aspects of India's contemporary foreign policy and its global engagement in the context of this rich heritage, drawing upon learnings from its living texts. These are living texts which people breathe every day today. The Ramayana, to tell us how the civilizational aspect of Bharat can help navigate the complex and uncertain geopolitical landscape we find ourselves in today. How it would play a salient role in tackling pressing global challenges like climate change, sustainable goals, and help strengthen and preserve the multipolar global order, in which providing and sustaining global public goods remains a moral and not just a strategic choice. So you can be certain that this is a book which promises to be a fascinating read, even more fascinating, as I said, than the first book. And it offers us a template to assess India's external engagement by looking at its rich past. So thank you all for joining us this evening for our first, as I said, public offering in 2024. And with that, I will say that the year could not have started off better. With this, I hand over. And I would like to join all of you in listening to, straight from the author, what we have to learn about his insights into this book. Thank you.
A very good evening to our author, Dr. Jaishankar, ma'am, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, my job as a publisher should normally be to talk to you about the book and what's in it and the various chapters and the fact that it's one of the best books ever written, etc., etc. I don't think that's what you're here for, to hear from me at least. And I think there are some aspects of today's evening which kind of sums up a lot about what is going to follow. While the title may be Why Bharat Matters, the nature of today's evening, a packed house, lots of media, lots of speculation, actually puts out another title, which should be Why S. Jaishankar Matters. And sir, many congratulations. This book, this audience, and the nature of the news that has preceded the book launch indicates exactly what I just mentioned. It is often that publishers dream of a book that happens to become a bestseller before an official release function. It does happen once in a while that some books, because of controversial reasons, tends to pick up public imagination and therefore climb the charts of different e-commerce portals. But there are very few books, at least that I can remember of, which climb charts of e-commerce websites, happen to become number one on that website, become the biggest bestseller of that website for that day, strictly on the basis of the content and the personality of the author. Why Bharat Matters is exactly that. So, sir, many congratulations that on the release date, we are not only a bestseller, but we're also number one across the country on all portals. It is a lovely problem to have when you have few copies and lots of orders. As publishers, we tend to do book launches one a week. So this is the usual practice. Normally, there are books which are stored outside the venue, the author is happy to sign, etc., etc. But there is very rarely an occasion when there is a help from the office standing outside diligently and, in the cold, waiting for the author to arrive, not because the author is important, but because there is a box of signed books in the trunk of his car, which needs to be there at the venue in time, which is even more important. Such is the pull and the fan flavor that this audience has towards Jaishankar ji. And I'm delighted that we've had this opportunity to publish him. One does have a privilege of interacting with a lot of people when you publish books, different types, some very busy, some not so busy, and some who are busy all the time. I don't have to tell you which category Dr. Jaishankar fits in. But it is very, very rare, and I say this with all honesty, even though I'm going to pitch for the next book, I say this with all honesty, that Dr. Jaishankar is a unique author. It is probably easy to write a book. It's probably a little more difficult to write a good book, but it's very difficult, ladies and gentlemen, to rewrite a good book. And I can say from experience that during the course of the many interactions that one has had the privilege of having with the Honorable Minister, he has worked diligently on the book and taken in every feedback that made sense and incorporated it and turned it around. No wonder our foreign policy is in good hands with the kind of the dotting of the I's and the crossing of the T's that he put in action with regards to the book. And on a lighter note, Sir is somebody who chooses the title or the title chooses him, I don't know. While coming to the book launch, I was thinking about the various times Sir has called me. And it has so happened that I made a list of all the times that he's called me, and I listed down the countries I was traveling in. And there are probably 17 countries, Sir, that I was in at different times of GMT, where I've received a call asking about a question, about a book, about the manuscript, and taking an immediate answer and incorporating it. And maybe that's why the title, Why Bharat Matters, because it's everywhere, all the time, and I think you're the best flag bearer of that. Thank you very much.